Good morning, everyone. I'll call this meeting of Heritage Oakville to order. We are here live in the council chambers, at least most of us are, but we have 3 members who are attending remotely. And there may be many members of the public too watching this meeting on live stream. And if they don't have a copy of the agenda and they would like to follow along with the work that we're doing today, they can go to oakville.ca, navigate the tabs for town hall and committees and meetings and agendas. It's pretty intuitive, and they can get a copy of that agenda and follow us as we go along. Delegates who are in attendance today will have registered beforehand. Delegates who wish to speak remotely must register beforehand. They must do that with the clerk's department by noon on the day before the meeting. And again, if you go to oakville.ca, there's a pretty simple delegation form that you can fill out. If you're going to delegate in person, we recommend you do that too, but you are entitled to delegate at the proper time during the course of the meeting if you are physically in attendance. Any matters that we deal with today will take the form of a recommendation to the Planning and Development Council for its next meeting on December the 9th at 6:30 p.m. and Council will dispose of any recommendations that we give them. Okay, so do we have any regrets, Madam Secretary?
We do, Mr. Russell Buckland and Kerry Colburn.
Russ is here.
Sorry, my apologize.
I regret that he's here, but he's here.
Kerry Colburn.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Okay. Bob's here. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest with respect to any matters before the committee day? Nope. Thank you. So the next item of business is the confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting. These were circulated. Are there any comments on those minutes? Would somebody like to give me a motion to approve them? Thank you, Jerry. Jerry has moved that the minutes be approved as circulated. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that? Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you. So our main item, our only item of business today as a discussion item, is the notice of intention to designate multiple properties. And Kate, off you go.
Okay. Hello. Will it show up? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm just waiting. Okay, perfect. Thanks for your patience. And thank you.
This is the high-speed new technology.
Yeah, it's probably my bad. Okay, so today, again, good morning. And today, staff are bringing forward 6 designations from our Heritage Designation Project. They're listed here. I'll just say them anyway. They are the Guest House Stonewall at 2 different addresses, 323 Douglas Avenue and 322 Watson Avenue, the Bailey Estate Farm Manager's Cottage at 1110 Lakeshore Road West, the Smith House at 2460 Old Brawny Road, the James and Muriel Blakelock House at 123 Trafalgar Road, and the Dorland House at 127 Trafalgar Road. They are neighbors. How do I? Did I press the arrow? No. I'm having a good tech morning.
Can you try this one? Sometimes there's a delay.
Okay, we'll try it. Okay, so for ease, I'm just going to be talking about the Guest House Stonewall, 2 addresses at one time. You can see they're behind each other there, but these walls were actually built with the Guest House, which is at 329 Douglas Avenue. This house was designated last year. It was built around 1910 to 12, and it originally included 6 lots. And this stone wall, this low lake stone wall, was built around the same time, at the same time as the house, and still lines those original property boundaries. So it is already designated as part of 329 and 330 Watson Avenue. So these 2 addresses are the last sections. And then once designated, the remaining original wall will be fully designated. So that's nice. The wall at these 2 addresses, both of them meet 4 criteria for 906 regulation. It has physical value as a rare remaining example of an early 20th century lake stone wall in Oakville. It has historical value. It's associated with Brantwood, one of Oakville's early subdivisions, and related to the arts and crafts movement. And it is important in defining, maintaining, and supporting the historical residential character of Brantwood, and is physically, functionally, visually, and historically linked to this subdivision. The next one is the Bailey Estate Farm Manager's House at 1110 Lakeshore Road West. So this one was built in the early 1920s. The Bailey Estate was also known as Lisanelli Farm, and it was owned by Frank Bailey. Frank Bailey? Yes, sorry. Frank Bailey and his wife Edith. So Frank Bailey is an early industrialist in Canada, and Edith, his wife, was very involved in Oakville historically, especially Appleby College. So in the 1920s, the Baileys bought this farm, and they proceeded to have many different farm outbuildings built and designed by Page and Warrington, a well-known Toronto architectural firm, including this house. So it was for their farm manager. It's the last remaining building of this collection of buildings on the property. And so the house meets 4 criteria. It has design value as a representative example of a one-story arts and crafts cottage as the farm manager's home. Its historical value is that it's associated with the Bailey family, who are well known in Oakville. And it's also associated with the Toronto architecture firm of Page and Warrington. And it has contextual value because it is physically, visually, and historically linked with its surroundings on Lakeshore Road West, where it was actually once right at the entrance to the estate/farm. Our next house is the Smith House at 2460 Old Brawny Road. This is a pretty interesting example of a structure in Oakville. It has heritage value for the Gothic exterior from the mid-1800s that we can see in the top photo, but it's also for the original portion of the structure to the rear of the house, which was built around 1813 using traditional timber frame construction techniques. So that is probably one of the oldest buildings in the area, and it's being conserved through development, as you can see in the bottom photo there. So this one actually meets 6 criteria. So it has design value for 2 different reasons. It's an evolved example of a 19th century village house with Gothic revival and Italian influences, and for its early example of the 1813 timber frame structure located at the rear of the house. Historically, it is associated with the 19th century village life of Palermo, and also associated with the Smith families, who were early settlers in the Trafalgar Township. And contextually, it is physically, visually, and historically linked to its surroundings, the village of Palermo, historically, and important in defining the area as a former historic rural village and telling the story of its evolution. So, then our final 2 houses are located on Trafalgar Road, 123 and 127 Trafalgar. 123 is highlighted. I highlighted it in that photo. So it was actually built around 1917, and it was built by James Blakelock, who is one of the Blakelock brothers, who are historically a well-known business in Oakville. They built a lot of houses around the city, or town, sorry. And so James and Thomas were brothers, and this whole historic block that the house is located in, many houses were built by them, and their lumber yard and business were also located on the block. But this one was built by James for his family, and actually the house right behind it on Church Street is already designated as the Thomas Blakelock House. So, let's see. So this one hits 4 points. It is a representative example of an Edwardian-style house with Queen Anne influences. It has historical value because it is associated with 20th century commercial and residential development of downtown Oakville, and also because it's associated with the Blakelock brothers, specifically James, who lived in the house with his family. And it is contextually important. It defines, supports, and maintains the historic low-scale residential and commercial character of downtown Oakville, and is functionally, visually, and historically linked to this historic downtown core. And 127 Trafalgar is its neighbor directly to the north. This one was actually built several years before 123. It was built in 1915. It was also built by the Blakelock brothers. However, neither one lived in it. Charles and Hannah Dorland were the first residents, so it's called the Dorland House. The points for criteria are basically the same, except that it's not related to James living in it necessarily. But it is, again, a representative example of Edwardian style with Queen Anne influences. It has the same historic value as it's directly associated with early 20th century commercial and residential development of downtown Oakville, and is associated with the Blakelock brothers. And its contextual value is important in defining, supporting, and maintaining the historic low-scale residential and commercial character of downtown Oakville, and is physically, functionally, visually, and historically linked to this historic downtown core. So to conclude, it would be that staff are recommending the 6 properties listed and discussed are recommended for designation. I guess there's questions now, if there are any.
Yep, thank you, Kristen. I guess we kind of did the Douglas and the Watson walls sort of out of order, did we? Did them both at the head end? Just looking down the list as it's presented to us. Yeah, good. Yep, I thought that.
Yeah, I just put them together for...
Good,
Yeah.
thank you. So, any questions of Kristen? Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to ask, it's actually more of a comment. The photographs, the 3-dimensional photographs that show the buildings on Trafalgar Road are pre the large building to its north. So it's a little disconcerting when you see it because it's disorienting that you can't really place the building, because right now the importance of it being a gateway to the historic, I guess, part of the downtown is really important, because anything north of that was lost. So I think the photograph should maybe show the new building so that you can actually relate its current context, because it's outdated, the photograph.
Yeah, I think we have, like, maybe the contextual in the streetscape section, you see a little bit of that big new building, but yeah, I don't have a comparison in there. That's a good point. But yeah, it's
Thank
true.
you.
Yes, it's good. It shows the photographs of the houses in an earlier state with the older buildings, but as Jerry points out, that's not there now. It's next to a very large building.
Yes, and if you are designating it dated today, it should really show the existing context. Thank you.
On page
Oh.
155, there is a photograph
Is there?
that shows the,
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, all of the photos are contemporary from 2024 in terms of the close-up photos, and there are some streetscape and contextual photos as well. I think maybe, Jerry, you mean there's not some that are taken really far back, including the Randall building, I think, is that it? There are some, if you look on page 146, 145 of the agenda, but certainly all of the photos of the building are from this year. Except for, of course, the historic ones, obviously. We don't have like an aerial view, though, showing an updated view of the aerial, the black and white aerial that is on page 142. That would be helpful to kind of see a comparison, I think, is your point.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's the one I'm referring to. I'm referring to the aerial because it's quite strong. The visuals are quite strong on the aerial to show it in context. The other
Right.
photographs don't show really the broader context, but the aerial view on 142 does, and that's the one that's disconcerting. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pity we lost the third house, which was just as important as the other two, but hadn't got designated. Any other questions? Yes, Jason?
Hello, thank you. It's somewhat unfortunate what's happened to these homes. It's more of a comment than anything else. Does this designation mean that something coming forward in the future would mean you try and repurpose it to what it looked like previously?
I can answer that through you, Mr. Chair. We can't require that a designated property, the owners of a designated property, take a building back, to what it looked historically. So we can't force someone to take out, contemporary windows and put in windows that are more appropriate. However, we do have our grant program, which encourages that, and we certainly do encourage people to, to make changes to the building that are more historically or even contextually appropriate. So with these, obviously, they're commercial. The two that are next door to each other in Trafalgar are both commercial. So there are always going to be some changes to accommodate that use in terms of signage, entryway, accessibility, et cetera. So those are certainly things that we still support even when the property is designated, because we want to make sure the buildings are useful and can have an appropriate use for them. But we would be able to have more control, for example, if a future commercial owner or tenant wanted to make changes to the signage or something like that to make it maybe sometimes be a little bit more appropriate to the building. So again, we can't force someone to take something out that's there, but we will have much more control over future changes. And with commercial buildings, you do tend to have a lot more changes over time, right, than you do with a residential building. So certainly a lot more opportunity there.
Okay, Jason?
Yes, thank you. And can I raise another
Yes, surely.
question? Thank you. Just regarding the farm manager's cottage, is that one, did I get the location right, that there actually is a lot of building happening in the grounds of that right now today versus what I've actually seen in the pack here?
Sorry, I missed the question. Was there more happening on the site today?
Yes.
Yes, so there, the photos are fairly new, but it has been, we've had a heritage easement agreement on that property for them to build a new addition. So they've retained the historic building, and the heritage easement agreement will actually be lifted now that we have a designation going in place. So the goal was really to retain the historic building. It's actually a family member, the Daly family. It was her ancestors who built the house and built the Lisanelli farm. So they have purchased the property and have restored the heritage building, the original portion, and have added additions to it. So you've definitely seen a lot of movement on that property and a lot of work done on it, and they're almost complete. So from our perspective, the last piece of this is to finish the designation on the property.
So that's almost slightly different in character from many of the others because it's the completion of an earlier chain of events.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. This one we've included with this package of the designations because it is one that we're doing as well this year, but we had started this one prior to the designation project. Yeah.
Of course. Good. Any other questions of Kirsten or Carolyn? Yes. Do you wish to delegate? I guess so. Yes, good. If you would just come up to the podium and give your name and address to the secretary.
Terry Murphy, 266 Gatestone Avenue, Oakville.
26, sorry, can you?
266 Gatestone Avenue.
I'm not sure that we are allowed to.
I just wanted to add one little comment just about the Dorland house, if I could, just a little addition. I had tea in that house when I was a little girl, and I didn't even know that that was on today. I just wanted to say that another important heritage point about that house is that it was the home of the Kelly sisters, and James Kelly had the big hardware store, which is still standing at the corner of Dunn and Lakeshore Road on the southwest side, that beautiful 3-story building. And if you look at historic paintings, you will historic photos, you will see the Kelly furniture store sign on that. And the Kelly sisters, who lived in that store over the store for years, they retired. They never married. They retired to that home on the Dorland house. And so it's also associated with that commercial history of Oakville, because the Kellys were in business on the main street for many years. And just also just on signage, it'd be lovely if that Rosehaven site would have some signage to indicate the Temperance Hall and that whole history. Tim Hortons was a good replacement, because I'm sure the Temperance fathers would have approved of a coffee shop, but it would be lovely, because that incredible building that was there at the corner, Brandel, and anyway, so sorry, I didn't intend to delegate, but I just wanted to add that thing about the Kellys, because that's a hugely important heritage connection. Sorry.
Good. Thank you. That's lovely information. Any comments on that? No. Okay. Good. George, I can see you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question on 2460 Bronte Road. I think more directly related to Carolyn, because this goes back to the the date that we had a meeting in that house, pre the report of 2018, because I started to read the report and I realized I'd already read this and I'd seen it, and I looked at the date, it's 2018. I'm just wondering if, because we did go through the whole house, we in fact saw the double wishbone and all the other construction, and I'm wondering, this had to be more than 6 years ago because the report was prepared, I think, after that fact. I'm just wondering what's happened in the meantime that would take it from 2018 to 2024 in the process. Thank you.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. Similar to the 1110 Lakeshore one, this one has had a heritage easement agreement on the property. So the committee would have seen it around 6 years ago, you're right, to bringing forward the impact assessment that was done by the heritage consultant saying that there was a larger development on the property and that they thought the heritage house was worthy of protection as part of that development. So that's what they've been working on the last several years. So the condominium building is just to the south and to the west, so just behind it. And the heritage house has been retained on site. It's been moved just slightly within the property and put on a new foundation. And it's now it's been restored completely in the outside. And in the inside, as you can see in some of the photos, the early 19th century, we think circa 1813, timber frame structure has also been restored and retained on the interior. So this is a unique one where the designation we're proposing has interior features included as well. So that'll be something, the developers are well aware of this. We've been working with their heritage consultants, and their next stage will be to lease or sell the property. It's actually a separate lot that's been taken out of the larger condominium development. So the idea would be probably a commercial space moving forward. But all of the restoration's been completed. So now to finish the process, we're looking at putting the designation bylaw in place, and then we'll remove the easement agreement.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Yes, George, I mean, you can see what's happened here. Our mindset is that this is part of the project, going through all the ones that were in the job jar, that were on the list, we're ticking them out, and we're doing stuff. In fact, there's enough people around here who've been around long enough to remember that, in fact, there's two of them that are, in fact, a different kind of cat from that. So maybe it could have been presented as two separate items, and that would have avoided that confusion. But it doesn't matter. It's part of the single motion. It'll go forward in the same way, but it might have been easier to separate them. Yep. Okay, good. Any other questions? Nope. Good, thank you. And we have no other delegates. Thank you very much for that. That was really interesting and useful. Any further discussion on this? Would somebody like to give me a motion? Bob, thank you. A motion to approve the staff recommendation. Any further discussion on that? Anyone opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much indeed. Right, we have some information items. There's the Heritage Conservation District update. And Kirk, are you going to do that for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bucknell. Work continues on the draft plan and guidelines, and edits continue. We are bringing that item forward to Planning and Development Council in the new year, January 20th, for a statutory public meeting, which is one of the next steps before adopting a bylaw. There's been substantial public engagement and consultation on the project. We need to have a meeting with council to take those next steps, and then we'll be moving forward with the bylaw in the new year. We have one more meeting with Heritage Oakville before the end of the year, and we'll have more details to share at that time. I will also count, with your indulgence, Chair, we aim to be starting 2 new conservation district plans in the new year as well. So that'll be Trafalgar and downtown Oakville. Just a little tease for the committee, something to look forward to.
Gosh, you're enjoying it so much, you've decided to do some more. So even the downtown one, you think, because that's the most recent of them.
Through you, Chair. That's correct. It is recent. This is be quite different from the old Oakville, which is a substantial revision. Yeah. This will be just a check-in,
just clean up.
And confirming. We have some new property owners and keeping people engaged in that district plan.
Yep. Okay, Super, thank you. The designation project update. Carolyn?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. We have a few more designations coming in the new year. We won't have it at the December meeting. We'll have a few other items on that agenda. But continuing to move forward, I think we've got well over 60 now, and we're also working on about 20 properties through easement agreements instead of designations. So you'll see those come through as well. And I think our original intention was designations, but heritage easement agreements are certainly another way to protect properties for the long term. So we'll be including some of those in this project as well. And I think we are definitely on track to meet our target of assessing 80 properties and potentially protecting 80. We will have assessed well over 80 and protected hopefully over 80 as well. So hoping to kind of wrap up the project in the new year, but knowing that we'll still have more designations coming up here and there in the next 2 years, because as you saw with the 2 properties today in Palermo and on Lakeshore, Sue and I both have other ongoing ones that are part of easement agreements or developments. So those will be coming forward too. That's it.
Okay, good, thank you. It's been a good project. So the next information item is our meeting schedule, which you all got. So I presume you've all plugged it into your calendars, and you've got those dates there for the next year. So the information items, I know that Councillor Gittings is anxious to get his name into the minutes, so he has just moved that the information items be received. Is there any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that? The motion is carried. Thank you. So the date and time of our next meeting is Tuesday, December the 17th. And from what you're saying, Kirk, we may be getting back the sort of latest draft of the district plan to look at then?
Through you, Chair. The next draft will be presented at the public meeting before council in January. We'll have some additional details to share on the update item in December with
So
committee.
it's just an update. It's not us going through it line by line or anything.
No, we won't be doing
Okay,
that. But
good.
the planning guidelines will be coming back to Heritage Oakville Committee prior to the bylaw going before council.
Yep, no, I understand. Thank you, good. Okay, so that's it for today. So if somebody would, Jason, thank you, give me a motion to adjourn. No one's opposed to that. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all once again for the gift of your time today, and we'll see you in December.